welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I am your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started with this very special episode, I want to remind everybody that if you want to find us on all our social media platforms, the easiest way is to go to our website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com. And you can find links to everything, to our TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon, everything. And if you want to become a Patreon member, you can also, there's a link to that gets you our episodes early and commercial free and some bonus content every month. And then if you want to find me and see all the shenanigans that I'm up to, you could just find me on Instagram at Shane Grove Author and follow along. Most importantly, if you have a story or an experience that you want to share, on that website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com, hit the contact button, send me an email, and I will read it and get a hold of you. And hopefully we can have you on as a guest and tell your story. So with that being said, we have a 2-for-1 today. Our episode's a 2-for-1. It's like the eclipse special, because we're recording this the day before the eclipse. So this is our eclipse special. So welcome to the From the Shadows podcast, two of the most highly talked about in our little tight circle here and well thought of people, Jami and Jenny King. Welcome to the From the Shadows podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whoever said that,
Nice
thank you.
And hey, look, we think it's a win because we all got connected on Skype and everything's working. So, 5 stars.
That's big.
5 stars for us so far. So I've heard of you guys. I've heard of your Bigfoot story, and we have mutual friends. And they said, you gotta have these guys on. They do some really cool investigative things that are going to maybe open some people's minds to some stuff. So I want to start, before we get into that, I want you guys to kind of share the experience that you guys had so that we can kind of, get some background on it before we get into some of that stuff. So, the mic's all yours. Go ahead and let's hear the story. Let our listeners know what happened.
I'm going to say ladies first.
I could go first. Our first experience, I guess, that we had was our first experience with Bigfoot happened in 2009. And Jami and I had his dad staying with us for quite some time. And he did pass away of cancer. But Jami was, of course, depressed and sad and grieving. Of course, so was I. My God, we've known each other since we were 10 years old. And I said, you know what, Jami? I said, let's get out into the woods. Let's go hiking. Let's get out in nature. Let's go to the Shenango, which we both grew up going to the Shenango. So we went the one day, and I was so glad to get him out because he was just, mostly just sitting there in his boxer briefs.
Yeah.
Is there any video evidence of that? I don't care so much about Bigfoot, but we want to make sure that. Okay.
Yeah, what she's basically saying is I fell into this really weird deep depression, and I'm sorry, our beagle's right here.
Oh, it's okay.
But it was this day we went out to this turkey trail in Pennsylvania at this reservoir called Shenango, and when I go out in nature, I usually say a prayer. So I said a prayer, Dad, if you're here, give me a sign that you're here. And, I kind of forgot about it. We started hiking, and we make it down to where this creek bed flows into the larger part of the Shenango. And we had our beagle with us, and our beagle was acting funny. So I picked her up because she was shaking, and I had thought that she had gotten stung with a bee or something. I don't know what it was. But as we stood there and I'm holding her, we heard this vocalization. So this long, drawn out, wailing type vocalization. And I remember kind of just standing there and not being able to speak, but Jenny and I made eye contact. And as we're making eye contact, I looked down at the ground and I saw this puddle rippling from the sound of whatever that was. And basically, it was at that point where we both just watched these trees in front of us shaking. So the trees were in front of us in this area that was sort of like it would be like a ridge line at the top, and it's kind of these weird little valleys that go in there because a tornado had come through there in like 1985. So the area is kind of like twisted anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But the weird thing was this vocalization, we really just stood there and we listened to it. And Jenny and I have grown up in Pennsylvania, so we're well aware of like animal sounds in the forest, and that was not any animal sound that I heard. And like we made this decision to leave, and Jenny and I'm still carrying my beagle's shaking, and we're hiking out back down this turkey trail back to my truck. And as we're hiking, you could hear what sounded like it was something was on both sides of us. So it was making this loud, like, la, la sound, like really, really, almost like, you could feel almost like the pressure of whatever the vocalization was ushering us out. And,
it didn't feel pleasant.
No, it really didn't feel pleasant because it was really just not a noise that we've ever heard.
Yeah, but you definitely got the feeling that you were getting ushered out, something on either side of you saying, okay, enough, get out.
Yes, and it's not like it's a quick little jaunt to get back to your vehicle either. So we're like, oh yeah, we got to go down this way and then kind of cross over to where it might be coming out. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh man, like it was a little bit, daunting. We're just kind of like, okay, let's get out of here. Let's go back up to the vehicle.
So even when we got back to my truck and we're headed home, we still weren't talking because I think we were both kind of in shock. But when we got home, we started researching animal sounds in Pennsylvania, and nothing matched it. And I don't know if a couple days went by or whatever, but we still were thinking about it. And one of our friends told us, did you ever hear Bigfoot vocalization? And I'm like, I don't really, that was furthest from my mind of looking something up. So I put in Bigfoot vocalization, and the first recording that came up was a recording called the Ohio Howl. And as soon as I played that, Jenny and I both looked at each other and
we're like, that's it.
It's what we heard, but only much, much louder and much, much closer.
Yeah, I think when you're actually there experiencing it, it is much louder. It's much bigger. It's more booming. Like it's
right. So then for me, I was like, I had to know more about this Ohio Howl because I'd never heard that recording ever. But I remember researching the Ohio Howl. Where was it recorded? It was recorded in Wellsville, Ohio. So then I realized Wellsville, Ohio is only about 45 minutes from Shenango, where we had this vocalization that we heard. So it kind of like puts it in perspective that if this was a biological creature that is making a sound in a forest, that it would be possibly the similar thing. And I believe Matt Moneymaker from Finding Bigfoot recorded that. And I had since spoken to him about the recording. I think we even shared some stuff that we had in Hocking Hills with recordings. But the other part of this was, and this is just making a long story short for you, that prayer that I said. So when you have an encounter like the encounter that we had, it was kind of like you really have to start dissecting it in your mind because you want to make a sense of it. And for me, that dissecting was over and over in my mind. What happened that whole day? What happened the minute I got there? What happened with the way I was thinking? Were we both thinking the same thing? Or, everything, every detail I kind of like pulled apart. So I was driving to work, and I remember driving to work, and it was this voice in my head that came and it said, just go back to the beginning if you want to find the answer. So the beginning of this whole thing was my father and that prayer. So I remembered that prayer, and I'm driving to work, and then I had to pull my truck off the side of the road because the memory that I had, and this is me going back to the beginning, but the very last memory that I had was with my dad while he was alive, was he asked me to take him out onto the porch so he could watch listen to the birds and watch the trees. And I did that for him. And I remember taking him in the house, and he said, I just want to watch a movie. So my sister from Maryland gave me a stack of movies. And in these movies, he chose a movie. I put it in the DVD player, and I'm watching my dad watch a movie. And the very last memory I had with my dad was he was watching Harry and the Hendersons. So it goes from this very physical experience, And it's very life changing to have what you consider a Bigfoot experience, to then realizing that I said this prayer. And lots of things can take you in directions that you're not quite sure where they're going to take you. But I had prayed all my life for things, and there's different types of prayers. But for this prayer to weirdly be answered in a way that like coincides with an event that I just had, that took on a bigger element for me. So I really started realizing that as human beings, maybe we have this strange, we have this connection with the unknown. I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean,
it's not coincidental.
I mean, do you think? So, I mean, obviously, I didn't know your dad. Did he? Did your dad have a great sense of humor?
He really did. Oh my gosh! Yes, he was like such a great person. Yes. Both my parents.
Because, I mean, that would be so like when you think about Bigfoot stuff. Everybody says, "Oh, I grew up watching In Search of" or The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Yeah.
Like nobody mentions Harry and the Hendersons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you don't hear that.
It's so how ironic. I think I'd like this guy for him to pick out Harry and the Hendersons, and then have this experience.
And I don't even know how they're it's too coincidental for me.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's the part that Jenny and I really dug into, because you really have to start thinking to yourself, are things coincidental in this universe? Are things really coincidental? So I started researching like the power of prayer. Like Bigfoot sort of took a backtrack to all of this, but that's when it got really in a different direction. But I'll say this, the other part of this, it's 3 layers to what happened to us, was the very first encounter, me understanding that this weirdly was connected with my dad in this prayer. I don't know how, and I don't know why, but it's brought me to this weird place in my life where I'm more awake and I'm more aware and I'm more, how would you say it, Jenny? I'm just more aware of my surroundings with everything. But the third part of this was we had taken our friend he was studying to be a fish and game and wildlife person. So I told him what happened to us, and he was like really excited, like, take me back. I want to see where this happened. So we had taken him back to this location, and we hiked all the way down, and I'm in my mind thinking nothing is going to happen. I'm just going to show him where this happened, and it's going to be that. So we took him, showed him where it happened, showed him where we saw the trees shaking, where we watched the puddle ripple, where the creek bed, all of it. And then on our way out, we started hiking out, and we were maybe halfway, midpoint on the trail to where we would be back to our vehicles. And there is this area where we heard what sounded like a man speaking. And then we heard go ahead, Jen.
Okay. Yeah, I had both dogs. We had 2 dogs at the time, Harley and Maisie, before we had Murray. And I had them, we had them, and Jamie said, well, get the dogs, we're going to go down and check it out, because I heard what sounded like a dog barking, a whistle, and then gibberish. So
all out there at the same
location.
Yeah, like up further, on the trail. But yeah, and Jamie said, well, Roger and I are going to go check it out. So I stayed up with the dogs.
And Roger and I walked over to this area that's like, it's sort of a ridge line, and then it drops down into like this area that's very, very, very thick. And I remember thinking to myself, I need to know what's going to come out, because I don't know if another dog was going to come out and attack my dogs or whatever. I just didn't know. So as we're standing there, we watched this thing stand straight up, and you could see the back part of it, like the head, the shoulders, and kind of the back. I didn't see legs, but I watched it go straight away from us. So it wasn't coming towards us, but it went away from us. And as it was going away from us, it was going downhill. So I remember the weirdest part was that I hadn't like zero fear, but I had more of this curiosity. Like, I need to know more, because this thing had already taken a very physical element to me, and then this very spiritual element with my father, to then another physical area. So I was like, I need to go. So I remember Roger and I both walked straight down into this area, and as we're going down, it was very thick to get through. So, I mean, Pennsylvania and Ohio has a lot of thick brush and thorny stuff.
Yeah.
So, whatever that was, and we both kind of realized it at this point, was that this thing had to be pretty powerful to go straight down away from us as fast as it did. You know, and then people would ask me, "Are you sure it wasn't a deer? Are you sure it wasn't a bear?" And I'm unsure of all of those things, but I know that when I got down there, there was this like almost like a nest like structure where this thing was bedded down. And, you know, I remember Roger and I both talking about it. And, you know, he basically told me that there were things that he couldn't, you know, always explain away. But he, you know, there wasn't things that he could explain away.
Yeah. And he's, you know, he's not the first person who works in a capacity like that for the government or for the state in different states that will tell you, look, there's stuff we can't explain. We've seen stuff, we've heard stuff, we get reports of stuff, and, you know, they're supposed to stick into the realm of known animals or known, you know, scientific stuff that they can prove scientifically as far as what's running around out there. And I know I know quite a few that have become more and more open to accepting the fact that there's stuff out there. And they don't say, yes, there's Bigfoot out there. It's always, there's stuff I don't know or I can't explain. And that's a fair answer, because that's how they're trained. You know, that's their education.
I mean, when he said that, I thought it was probably the most responsible answer, you know, because I didn't have any physical evidence, but, you know, like, this is where it all started for us. Like, you asked us to talk about how it all started, but now we do a micro study. So our goal has been, and it's been a pretty healthy goal, because we try to get out as much as we can almost every single day since this happened. And we have really made the Shenango our home, in that we know almost every nook and cranny. We know different areas, and we let areas breathe. I call it breathe, where we'll not go there for 3 or 4 months and then go back and look. And there's things that we find that, you know,
like we did today. Actually,
like we did today, we found some things that we document, we note, we draw them, we take photographs, we video.
So the first place you heard the vocalizations, the same place that you went back and had the sighting and heard some other sounds, and that happened really pretty close together. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so since then, you really have you gone back to those same spots, right? And you're not getting the same type of interaction, right?
Not the same, no.
Not the same. But do you wonder if, see, this, when you're telling me this, and the tie-in with your dad and having it happen, so I'm wondering, like, was it somehow connected? Like, that the 2 times you go back, you get some really serious, strong evidence that there's something going on, almost to say, hey, look, we're not going to show you everything, but we want you to keep coming back. And you're going to have to work for it this time. And maybe that was your dad's gift to you as he left. Like, okay, I know this is where these guys this is what they should be doing. So I'm going to give them this. And it is a gift. I mean, I can see you guys love.
I mean, thank you for thinking of it that way. I don't know. But that's a nice way to think of it.
Yes.
I mean, that's what strikes me, is it's almost like it was, maybe it was known somewhere else in the ether that this was something that you guys needed to do. And it would be great for you guys, and to get out there and do, go out every day. I mean, how can it hurt to go? I mean, I say, how can it hurt to go out every day? And I hate going out on the mail route every day. But for you guys going out into the woods, It sounds great to be outside
But
and
you
do
know, like
this kind of
it's
thing together.
it's really like a lot of things. Things can get your attention in the world. Like, I mean, I grew up in church and I was bored with church, and I was bored with, I was sort of angry with God, like my mom had passed away, then my father, and like literally it gets your attention. Like this thing got my attention. Bigfoot definitely, I'm going to say potential Bigfoot experience because I don't know for sure. But I'm going to say that this prayer that I said 100% got my attention. Like, I don't know how else to say it to people. So, that's the other part of this. Like, Jenny and I, then I was going to grief counseling after this. And I was like, I'm bringing this up to the grief counselor, what happened with this prayer. And literally, she said to me, Jamie, there's lots of things that people have psychologically happen to them after they lose a loved one. But she said, there's things out there people have happen that they can't explain. And then she got us in touch with other people, and we were in this group of people that were called free thinkers. And this group called free thinkers, there was a woman in there that was supposedly abducted by aliens, and she was a preacher. So I started talking with her and other people in the group, and we would do like little field trips. So we went on this field trip with her, this lady, and she was doing this thing called CE5 contact. And it's about Dr. Stephen Greer has this protocol, which is basically human initiated contact with ETs. And I was like, this is fascinating because it kind of could go in line with the way we research. So, like because mine would be a human initiated contact through prayer to my dad. I don't know if they're both connected, but
they're both intentions.
They're both intentions, yeah. So when we think about like, I don't know who might be listening, but I think that the things that we do and the things that we say when we're researching have a powerful intent. But in this free thinker thing with the CE5, we were using Dr. Stephen Greer's protocol where they would use known UFO recordings, which were basically like tones and frequencies, and you play them on external speakers, and then you do a meditation. And we would go to the soccer field and we would put out these meditation and sort of like prayers that we're sending to the extraterrestrials, like, we're here to make peaceful contact with you. We're human ambassadors of love and peace. And literally, I don't even know how to describe this, but Jenny, we've had contact in the coolest way with things in the sky. And even to explain to people without sounding crazy, we've had things happen in our own house after we've done these CE5 contacts. So it's strange. It's all a very strange thing, but
it's very cool.
It's very cool.
Actually, I think it's very cool.
It's exciting.
Like some people might be a little like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that and experience that. But
we just took your show in a whole different direction, but it's sort of all related. The unknowns are related.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's no secret that there is a big part of the population that truly, that believes in prayer. Okay. But for the people that don't necessarily believe that they're praying to a God to hear them, there is the thought of that because we're all energy and we're on a frequency, that if you put that out there, those thoughts, those vibrations, so to speak, that something or somebody or is going to, that's on the same plane. Yeah. They're going to, so whether it's you want to make contact with a UFO or an alien entity, or you want to attract a better job, it's all what your intentions are. And I think if anybody, and it's all, I don't want to offend anybody and say, well, it's all the same. But it essentially is the same, whether you believe you're praying to somebody or whether you think you're just putting it out there. Either way, you're putting it out there on a frequency for something you believe in or you want to reciprocate your desires or your hopes. And
I might want to correct this because like when you use the word prayer and you use the word just our own language, our thoughts. I'm not praying to extraterrestrials or Bigfoot.
No. Yeah. I don't think.
I'm just sending my heart.
Jamie's not worshiping.
No.
ET or Harry. Okay, so yes, yeah, and I didn't mean for it to sound like that if that's what I was saying, but no, I'm just saying that you know, to me it's essentially the same thing. It's just whatever you believe in, because not everybody believes in the same thing. I mean, and I can't tell somebody what they should believe in as a higher power, or whether they should believe in something if they don't. That's everybody's on their own journey. Like I think you guys have plainly stated that. And so, but I 100% believe there is, what you think about, you ask for, it will come, whether you're ready for it or not. And and you may not be ready for it, and you may miss it and have to work towards it again if you I mean, it's
back
just,
around again. You're like, oh, here we go.
So I totally get it.
Like, it was part of that was like, I had to start researching thoughts and how thoughts are like true. They are truly energy. And I came to the 12 universal laws. So I started researching the 12 universal laws, and I incorporate them into how I move through my everyday life, but basically in my research for sure. And, when Jenny and I go hiking, and basically it's like Tina on your last show, really, we're not always out there looking for Bigfoot. We're really just hiking, and we're looking at our area, and,
just having fun.
The intention is, to enjoy life. And, like what I realized after this whole encounter was, we're only on this planet a short amount of time. And, like, I might as well learn as much as I can. And, I take the good and the bad, and I always try to find a silver lining with all of it. And this, I feel like this Bigfoot encounter that I had, supposed Bigfoot encounter, has this silver lining. And the loss of my father would have been like super hard for me to even, I was having a hard time dealing with it. So coming out on the other end, losing my father, and this experience has taught me so much about living life to its fullest.
I can't argue. Yeah. I think that's a message that a lot of people need to hear, live life to its fullest, to your best ability. And I think it's a lot of people say, just like you guys going out into the woods and being together and being with nature, like going to the basic of what we all should get back to some degree. It's never a bad thing. It's never, spending time and especially if you are a spiritual person, we all know, you get into the woods, you stand before a large body of water, you stand under the stars. Nothing makes you feel more in touch with whatever made us and made everything else than just being one with whatever it is. And you realize, like, none of us can make a star. We can't make that body of water. We can't make those trees. They were here long before us. They'll be here long after we're gone.
We're all connected.
I can't argue that. Yes, we're all connected, but I do not think that. I just think we're all part of that small. We're all a small part of the bigger, bigger thing, for sure. And and I think that attitude, gosh, it would make the world so much of a better place if everybody just took a step back and say, yes, we all are connected, whether we like it or not. I mean,
I mean, you're all when you're standing under the stars, and whether it be you're in the woods hiking, or you're calling in ATs, or whatever you're doing, just sky watching. It does make you realize that you are part of this whole connection and cosmos and universal everything, and when you start realizing that, then things start falling in place, and you realize that we're created from a creator, so we're creating as we go. And I started realizing that each and every person that I meet on this planet is a different reality. So when you start talking about realities and what is this person's reality, people will come to us with their Bigfoot encounters, which they have on many occasions, and I always listen, because I don't know if something that they're going to say is going to connect a piece with what my encounter was. But that's my ultimate goal, is to like put these pieces together and while I'm here and figure this out.
Now, okay, so I want to go back to the second time you guys were out there and ask. I want to know. So Jenny, were you the only ones that heard the sounds, or did both of you guys hear like the samurai chatter and the whistle and stuff?
Oh no, we all heard it.
Oh, okay, because I know I definitely did, because I was like, oh, I was worried about the dogs, so I made sure I got both of them, but yeah, it was a dog. It sounded like a dog barking. I'm sorry, like a dog, and then a whistle, and then gibberish.
And so what? So Jamie, what did your friend think about that? Like, now that's separate from seeing something, and if he, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's strange stuff to hear out in the woods, especially deep in the woods.
I don't necessarily know that he made a comment about it, because
he was pretty he was very calm, but at the same time he didn't know what to say. Like, he was totally like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Now, do you feel I mean, at the time, other than just being shocked, as you think about it, do you think something was trying to get your attention and take your attention away from walking up on what the creature, the thing that you saw? Or do you?
It's possible. I mean, it kind of got them to go deeper in, to the woods, where it's like it was coming from.
I mean,
but maybe was there something somewhere else? I don't know.
This is what I will say. I never really thought about like why something would have. To me, honestly, I never expected anything to happen when we took him down there. I never did. But the longer we're doing this, the more I realize, and I look around and I think to myself, this is almost a playground. Like literally the Shenango, the stuff that we find almost feels like something very young is playing in.
Okay.
Like maybe that was young. That's my thought. That's maybe what I'm trying to say.
Or as adults, we like to play too.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Hey, that may be. Well, no, wait a second. That might be a whole nother podcast. Anyway.
I was totally talking about Sasquatch.
I know. So now that you guys have, so what are some of the things that you are discovering then out there, going out every day and looking at things from a different perspective? What are some of the things that you're coming across and documenting?
Well, like today we went out to an area that we've been in many, many times, and the water's really high right now. So we went out to check things out, and we get to where we normally go. And I'm like, well, let's try to take a different path on the way back. Like, I just wanted to go more to the left, but we went over that way. And then Jamie's like, what's this? And here,
like, we had just walked past it, but we're documenting and we're mapping all of these structures. And when I say structures, they're not like structures that, like, people circle it and say, oh, here's the structure. They're legitimate, like, construction, architecture type things. And there's a few researchers that I really respect in Canada. And these Canadians are sending similar structures, almost like an artist would. When you look at a Picasso and you see a Picasso, you know it's a Picasso. Mm-hmm. When you look at Van Gogh, it's a Van Gogh. When you look at this thing that they found in Ontario, Canada, or in Algonquin, and then you find it here at Shenango, and you look at a map and you draw the line straight down, it's almost like this thing is making these architectural things
same type, in the same. Where they're very similar. They have like a characteristic that's similar.
But the other thing I can say, and I should say, is that I can't rule out human activity. I cannot. But we have found prints that we've casted near these things. And literally, when we always go out, I always say, you know, Bigfoot, if you're here, show me a sign, give me a sign that you're here. And it's just one of the things I do. It might sound stupid, but that's what I do.
Well, that's no worse than going out and doing a wood knock. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think it's probably safer to do that than it is to go out and knock on a tree, or give a Bigfoot call, because who knows what that means?
I'm going to tell you another one that I don't really talk a whole lot about, but it also goes in the same vein of like the whole prayer thing. But we had taken our friends, Monique and Todd, and our friend Sparky to Hocking Hills, to an area where they had Bigfoot activity. And we stayed at this cabin, and, all day long we were doing the whole whoops and knocks in the Hocking Hills State Park, and little kids were whooping and knocking back. And it was really cute. But that night, the following day, we hiked out this power line on this property where they had Bigfoot activity. So we hiked out this power line, and we found this partial print that was washed out, but it had definitive toe structure. And I remember we photographed it, and that we went back to the cabin, and we were all sitting around the fire that night. And I said, our friends were there, and they were not into Bigfoot, but they said, it was this weird moment where they were kind of like, let's go up on the hill for Jamie for shits and giggles and make like a Bigfoot sound or whatever. And I was like, oh man, that kind of made me like, it tugged at me a little bit, like, oh, they're making fun of me. So I said this prayer. I'm like, Bigfoot, if you're here, don't make me look stupid. So we went up on this power line, and literally when we get up on this power line in Hocking Hills, there was thousands of fireflies, like the most beautiful thing that you would ever see, just all encompassing. And I remember we were all standing there in awe, thinking to ourselves, if there's nothing, this is like the most
I know, that would have been beautiful.
Yeah.
And then we did the whole whoops and the knocks and stuff, and we started hearing vocalization on one side of us, vocalization on another side, and then we heard what was it? Almost like something was coming towards us, and
doing like growling, or I don't know if it was really growling,
But the really cool thing is, as we were standing there, our friend said, do this, make a vocalization. So I made this vocalization almost like a primate. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this tree gets knocked down and thrown at us. And literally, we all started freaking out. And the one girl that was there had an air horn. We had no idea that she had this air horn. She let out this air horn, and it scared.
Oh yeah, that's what scared me the most.
But the really cool thing is,
well, Sparky was the one that actually saw the tree kind of being thrown. But I'm sorry, what were you
the really
saying?
cool part is this girl right here recorded the whole night. So she was recording audio.
I had
the whole night.
I had a recorder on me because we were all ghost hunters. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, let's take the audio. You might as well, tape. I forgot it was in my pocket. After we got back, I'm like, oh my god, I have it.
So we have this recording that we all every once in a while we'll pull out and share with one another, and it's super fascinating because you can hear the vocalization, you can hear the tree being uprooted, and when I say thrown at us, it was uprooted. You can hear it being pulled from the ground and thrown at us. So that was another.
It's probably just a squirrel, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
that's
everybody, right?
Wow, that's a big squirrel.
And it's one thing. So it's one thing for somebody to knock and whoop back, which you can imagine the possibility of that happening in that place. It could be a possibility because there's lots of people out looking. Okay, I cannot imagine somebody out there going, "I'll get him. I'm going to pull this tree out of the ground and I'm going to throw a tree at him."
Right.
Because what are the odds that somebody could do that? To do that, even to a dead tree?
This was actually years ago, and literally, Hocking Hills has changed in a lot of ways. But when we were there at this specific place that we stayed, it was very, very remote. It's closer to Ash Cave, which is we were actually staying in Vinton County, not Hocking County.
Okay.
And it's pretty fast.
Yes, it is still remote.
It's pretty remote, yeah, but I Google mapped it, what is behind here where this came from, and literally there's a swamp basically behind it, and this huge power line that goes through the entire Hocking Hills. It's when they first built the power line. So I would say
it's like
power
the
line
clear
might be
cut,
yeah,
right to the okay.
yep.
Yeah, and I mean, I just always when I hear that people, are in places where it's notoriously like there could be other people out there. It's one thing to do that, but it's another thing to have everything that you guys talked about happen. Like that's just not going to happen. Nobody's throwing a tree. Nobody's growling at
No.
you. Like,
No.
and if somebody was going to do that stuff, and especially on both sides of you guys, okay, to make stuff on both sides, it'd be one thing for one. But if somebody was doing that to try to be funny, you don't know who's like carrying a gun or who's, a little angry or scared at the same time.
Right.
like I just the people that are out there doing that. That's why when people talk about some of the fakes, like people, I mean, I know there's hoaxers and stuff, but when people talk about like, all those footprints were faked 15 miles out in the middle of nowhere. It's like who goes out there to do that, hoping somebody finds it, because it's not like that stuff ends up on the news and you're going to know, my
But even in my brain, how I think is they did the power line, and I thought to myself, I wonder if a worker was out here and took their shoes off and got stuck in the mud, and where I'm looking at a partial human print. But I don't think so. I don't think it was. I think it was what I'm thinking it was.
Yeah, I also can't imagine.
Uh-oh, he froze. What happened?
Uh-oh, Shane.
Wait, he's coming back.
Did I freeze?
A little bit. You're good.
You're back now.
Okay. But like that, I can't imagine somebody taking their boots off and walking barefoot. That work out there. That's just because when you start trying to think of, and Wes says this a lot on Sasquatch Chronicles, is when you start trying to make up things that we know exist as the reasons to make some of this stuff happen, you end up sounding crazier. You know what I'm saying? Than just saying, okay, either it's a guy that's out there working in the rain and cold and he took his boots off and walked around barefoot, or it's a Bigfoot. It's more likely a Bigfoot or a creature that you don't, or whatever. But it's probably not a guy.
We told the owner too. We told the owner about like what had happened, and she's super fascinated. But she then started telling us about when she was a little girl. She grew up on that. It's basically a farm, but it's turned into a cabin. And she started telling us about experiences that she had when she was a little girl. She said she would walk to the school bus stop, which was like this long dirt road. She would get to the part of the dirt road. She would always hear this. And this is how she described it to Jenny and I. She said, Jamie, it would be like if you had a zipper on a tent and you pulled the zipper up really fast. She said it was like this whoop,
or like
sound. Whoop. Like it was always this whoop sound. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
We were like
that's kind of cool.
We're like, oh, that's.
And then she said her father was in the driveway of this, where the cabin is that we stay. And she said that this man pulled up in a coal truck and said to him, I need you to stand here and talk to me, because he said, I just saw this big hairy thing cross the road on 2 feet. And this is what she was telling us after this experience. I'm like, this is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, you put one puzzle piece together, another puzzle piece, and then you realize that you're looking at something that's a larger picture.
Yeah, and it's so cool to have that described as a zipper going up, because as a kid, and you may not have a frame of reference for anything, and you wouldn't expect somebody out there making. She probably didn't know who Ric Flair was, right?
Probably not. No.
But yeah, that's cool to hear that from a kid, from somebody who had that experience as a kid. And gosh, I can almost imagine a guy in a truck thinking, I got to talk to somebody because I think I'm going crazy. I just saw,
Right.
I just saw something I can't explain. Holy smokes. So so you guys are documenting and seeing stuff and experiencing stuff out there enough that it makes you guys want to keep going every day. And
Yeah.
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 So
It's about building a body of evidence. So like we're building this slowly, like I'm not a person that's out there, everything's Bigfoot. I'm out there slowly gathering and putting together my own little thing. And, like every little thing I'm going to look at might not be valuable to other people, but, I'm going to see value in it somehow. And that's kind of
any time out in nature is valuable. If you
it's valuable.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. So is there a time that is there something that could happen that you guys would be like, okay, I've seen enough. I don't need to go out anymore. Can you imagine that happening? Or is there, or would it just, do you think it would just spike your interest even more to keep doing this?
I don't know if I could just quit going out into nature. I don't know. It would take something pretty big for me not to ever want to go out there again because I love it.
So. She does love it. Like for both, I think for both of us, like nature's become super spiritual to us. Like it's like I grew up in church, but I feel more connected to God when I'm out in in nature for real.
Oh, it's healing.
And it teaches you so much.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with that statement. But because it's interesting because there's people that the experiences that you guys had to start off with would definitely be here pounding and saying, this is Bigfoot. I know it's Bigfoot. And yet you're still, even though I think you really feel like that's what it is, you're still at least, saying, I don't know. I don't know 100%. You're very open-minded to the fact that it could be something else, and you're willing to say that, whereas, some other people with less experiences would be saying this is definitely what it is. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I appreciate your approach and your open mind to the whole subject, because I think that's important. Because I think people that are listening that are like on the fence anyway, and all of us that have podcasts, we have listeners that are sitting squarely on the fence. And I think they want to hear people who have experiences and still are looking for answers, rather than people that have an experience and are saying, okay, I know 100%. Because there are, like, if something's in your face screaming at you, you 100% know, that's a Bigfoot in your face.
Well, maybe it goes back to what you said, your take on like the whole thing. Maybe it's my dad knowing that Jenny and I will continue to keep looking for answers. And, like, I think we're both sort of seekers in that aspect where we're always going to seek answers and continue. Like, I hope we're old people still being able to hike, doing stuff that we want to do, like people's health fails. So maybe this will keep us healthy. And if anything,
wait, I think
you froze again.
Are you still with us?
You guys are old people. We established that before we started. But older, but
older than you.
just a little bit. Nobody watching this will believe that. So, and I'll probably get an email about that. How dare you say that she's older than you? She's obviously 20 years younger than you. And maybe, and going back to, how you guys got on this path, and like what I said about the people that do listen to our show and many of the shows seeking their own answers, maybe they knew that there was a place for you guys to go out and do this and give people a different perspective on what is out there, and it will resonate with them, more so, because everybody's looking for answers, and I think that I think that what you guys have said and the stuff that you guys have experienced and kind of your perspective is a perspective that a lot of people will be able to relate to for sure. You know?
Yeah, and I think when you hear somebody's experience and you've had an experience, but you're like, I don't want to tell anybody. I'm too nervous. I'm scared. People think I'm crazy, and they kind of hold it in. But the more and more people are talking about their experiences, people are like, you know what? It's not so weird or crazy. Hey, I might as well share my experience. You know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to take a step back, if Jami is willing to come out and say, hey, look, this is something, I think these things are connected, and say that I think my dad was trying in his own way, you know, by watching Harry and the Hendersons and then saying, you know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, just to be open to that, because it's not crazy. Okay. It is not. People do have to keep their eyes open and their minds open and see what is going on out there, because it's the world's a really mysterious, crazy place, and there are answers, I think, but you know, they're not going to give them. They're not going to get. It's not going to give it to you. You got to be a seeker. Right?
It's like, I'm comfortable maybe not even getting the answers that I need, because I think someday we're all going to get the answers wherever we go. I think we're going to get them.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I don't know. I will say this. I'm so glad that you guys came down and shared this.
I'm glad we got to make it work.
I know. So I want people that, are you guys open for people to reach out to you guys if they enjoyed hearing, you know, your guys' story here, and if they want to share something that similarly happened or something? I mean, are you okay? How can people get a hold of you guys?
Well, we're on Facebook. So
Jami and Jenny King, we're both on Facebook. You can add us as a friend. I'm on Instagram, and it's Jami_Jenny. And I know I'm friends with you on there. What else? Pennsylvania Sasquatch Research. I'm always on there.
Okay.
I have my own private one that I have with just most of the local people. So then I know I'm getting local stuff. So that one's more private. But Pennsylvania Sasquatch Research, you can contact me there.
Okay. Well, we'll put up some links when we put up this episode so people can find you guys, because I think I think some people are definitely going to this is going to resonate with them, and they're going to want to talk to you guys, because I know I'm glad I got to.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Amy and Tina, for suggesting.
Yeah. Thank you, Amy and Tina. I'll definitely will send them a message and tell them thanks. But no, I appreciate you guys sitting down and sharing your experiences and your perspective on stuff. And I think it's great. Look, I'm looking forward to you guys really coming up with some other answers, because I think that you guys going out there and doing this, you're gonna find some really cool stuff.
Yeah. We kind of
totally, right?
Yeah, we kind of are.
Well, I appreciate it, and hey, everybody, we'll put links up so you guys can get a hold of Jami and Jenny. And thanks again for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.